the spirit in which to do everything. There's a quiet little story buried in the Hagakure, Yamamoto Tsunetomo's reflections on the way of the samurai. It doesn't roar like a battlefield memory. It doesn't preach, but it cuts deep, if you're listening close. Once, when Lord Mitsushige was a little boy and supposed to recite from a copybook for the priest Kaion, he called the other children and acolytes and said, "Please come here and listen. It is difficult to read if there are hardly any people listening." The priest was impressed and said to the acolytes, "That's the spirit in which to do everything." That's it. Simple. A child asking for an audience before reciting his lines. But this one moment, preserved by Tsunetomo, holds a message that transcends time. What Lord Mitsushige said wasn't about vanity. It wasn't about applause or showing off. It was a declaration. Expression means more when it's received. The act of being witnessed doesn't dilute meaning. It amplifies it. Even as a child, he understood the energy that flows between speaker and listener, creator and audience, soul and world. There's something about showing up when others are present. It calls your focus forward. It demands something more intentional, more alive. It is difficult to read if there are hardly any people listening. Yes, because presence sharpens performance. Attention elevates the act. But the real wisdom here comes from the priest's reply. That's the spirit in which to do everything. Everything. Not just reading, not just speaking. Everything. To live with that spirit means to approach every act as though it matters. As though someone is listening, even if no one is. As though your life is being witnessed, even when it isn't. Because it is. By your future self. By the ancestors who carried the fire before you. By the universe, recording everything in silence. Every word you write, every brushstroke, every note, every act of discipline, or creation, or reflection. It becomes more real when done with the energy of presence. Not performance for the sake of attention, but intention for the sake of alignment. A devotion to the moment itself. That's the way of the artist. That's the way of the warrior. That's the way of someone who treats even the smallest action as a form of prayer. That's the spirit in which to do everything. So here's the contemplation. What if everything was done with that spirit? Not rushed, not half present, not waiting until the spotlight turns on, but ready now, open now, present now. What if we gathered our invisible audience each morning? Not for praise, but to summon the part of us that shows up completely. What if before we spoke, painted, studied, or practiced, we said to ourselves, "Please come here and listen." And in that invitation, we remind ourselves that this moment matters. This sentence, this page, this practice, this life. Because that's the spirit in which to do everything. Hagakure, Reflections of Yamamoto Tsunetomo. The way lives on. More contemplations to come.